Good morning, Steelworkers, and thank you for that generous reception. And let me welcome you to beautiful Montreal, one of the world's great French cities. C'est toujours un grand plaisir d'être au Québec, où les métallos ont une histoire riche de militantisme progressiste. Le thème de notre congrès national, l'égalité et la fierté, incarne certainement ces grands héritages des métallos. C'est donc mon honneur de vous accueillir à la 53e Congrès national de notre grand syndicat. Brothers and sisters, I was actually thinking of delivering my entire speech in French. But then I come to realize that it's only a 4-day conference and I'm not sure I'd be done by Friday. So sisters and brothers, it's truly my honor to welcome you to the 53rd Canadian Policy Conference of our great union. It's always a great pleasure to be in Quebec, where the steelworkers have such a rich history of progressive activism and achievement, and a history that is perhaps not as well known outside of Quebec as it should be. And it is for that reason that in your kits that you've each received a book that sets out the history of our union in Quebec. This book was originally written and researched for the Métallo Conference in 2014, the 50th anniversary of the independent District 5. Throughout the week, we'll be presenting readings of this historic steelworkers events in Quebec. And so for all of those who are not from Quebec, I hope that you can learn and appreciate the rich activist history of our union in this province. This is the 53rd time that steelworkers from across Canada have come together to set policies, to confront our challenges, and to move our union forward. The theme of our conference, National Policy Conference, is Equality and Pride. Certainly embodies our union's great legacy. And I can tell you that it's inspiring for me to be here, surrounded by the best activists and the leaders in the labor movement. It's wonderful to be in Montreal for our National Policy Conference, but it also feels a bit strange because it's for the first time since 2007, Daniel Waugh is not the leader in Quebec. Danielle retired as the District 5 director at the end of last year after a remarkable career spanning 4 decades as a steelworker activist and a leader. Danielle's strong, principled leadership guided our union in Quebec through the difficult challenges and times. He was also a leading progressive voice for the entire labor and social justice movement in Quebec. Fortunately, Daniel is continuing to play an important role in the labor movement as a vice president of the FTQ Solidarity Fund. I'm privileged to call Daniel a friend and to have been able to work with him for so many years. Danielle, I know that all steelworkers thank you for your commitment and your contributions to our union and to the progressive movement for so many years. Daniel, thank you very much. Our union, in particular, Quebec Steelworkers, are fortunate to have Alain Croteau as the new director of District 5. Elaine previously served as Daniel's assistant and officially became the director on January the 1st. Elaine has been a Metelo activist and a leader for more than 3 decades. He was often handpicked to lead our members through some of the union's most difficult struggles in Quebec. So I would like to recognize Elaine, as well as his assistant Dominic Lemieux, for their strong leadership on behalf of the Quebec Steelworkers. Thank you, Elaine. I also want to recognize the tremendous leadership of our other district directors who are with us this week. District 3 Director Steve Hunt and District 6 Director Marty Warren, who continue to provide unmatched leadership for our members and for all working people in our country. So thank you both to Steve and to Marty. It's a great pleasure for me to offer a special welcome to all first-time delegates to this policy conference, particularly the leaders and activists from new steelworker locals that have joined our union in the last 3 years. Through mergers and organizing, we have welcomed more than 21,000 new members since our last convention in 2013. Our union continues to lead the way in organizing the unorganized, giving workers a real voice and influence in the decisions that affect the working lives and standards. Obviously, it's not possible to mention all the groups that we've welcomed into our union in the last 3 years. But let me mention just a few new steelworker locals to give you a flavor of the new membership. They include security workers and Tim Hortons employees in Quebec, nuclear technology workers in Ontario, and potash workers from Rocanville, Saskatchewan. And of course, over 12,000 telecommunication workers from across Canada. One of our proudest moments over the last 3 years was the vote on November 2014, when a resounding 74% of members of the telecommunication union workers voted to merge with the steelworkers. This merger adds a whole new sector to our union. It adds thousands of women to our membership. The TWU chose the steelworkers because we are a strong, democratic, and progressive union that provides quality representation to our members. Right now, over 11,000 members of Local 1944 are in the middle of a very tough set of negotiations with the telecommunications giant TELUS. They know that we will do everything we can to support them and to ensure that they get a fair deal. I would like to recognize TWU Steelworker Local 1944 President Lee Riggs and all the local delegates who are here with us this week. Thank you for your strong leadership on behalf of our members across the country. Lee. I would also like to welcome the members who are leaders of the Steelworkers Organization of Active Retirees who are joining us this week. The SOAR members just wrapped up their successful national policy conference here yesterday. I know I speak for all steelworkers when I say that none of us takes for granted the struggles that our SOAR members waged over the years to build our union and to improve the living standards for everyone in this country. So to our SOAR members, on behalf of all steelworkers, I salute you, your tireless commitment to building stronger communities and to building a better society for all of us. Yesterday, I had the pleasure of spending the morning with dozens of young steelworkers from across the country who attended the second National Next Generation Conference. It's an understatement to say it's inspiring to be around those young activists and to witness their talents, their dedication, and their positive outlook. We refer to them as Next Gen, but these young steelworkers are already making their mark. They are some of the most committed labor, political, and social justice activists anywhere. And they are leaving no doubt that our union will benefit from the strong, progressive, and skilled leadership well into the future. I'm very pleased that the Next Gen delegates are also attending our policy conference here this week. And I'm sure it'll be a rewarding experience for you, and I encourage you to make the most of it. I know our more experienced delegates will make you feel welcome, and I know that they join me in recognizing your commitment and your contributions to our union. I would like to also recognize our International Vice President, Carol Landry, who, of course, is a legendary woman of steel from my home District 3. Carol is an inspirational leader to all steelworkers and is a great role model for our young activists, as she showed once again yesterday with her wonderful contribution to our Next Gen conference. Thank you, Carol, and thank you for being here. I would also like to welcome our strategic alliance partners from the Canadian Union Movement, partners such as ACTRA, Unite Here, and the Communication Workers. These strategic alliances are truly important to me and our union. They are crucial to building solidarity within the labor movement. When our sister unions need our help, we are there for them. And when our members are confronted by tough fights, we truly cherish the solidarity that is shown by our partner unions. I would also like to welcome our esteemed international guests and our allies from other international unions and progressive organizations who share our goal of building a better world. We look forward to hearing from you during this conference and working closely with you in the future. We have an exciting, interesting lineup of speakers and special guests who will be joining us throughout our conference this week, including our International President, Leo Gerard. Leo has been a tremendous leader for our union for many years, and he has earned a reputation as one of the preeminent voices of labor and progressive activism in North America and internationally. I'm very pleased that we're going to be joined later today by our union's great friend and ally, federal NDP leader Tom Mulcair. I'm proud to be among the growing chorus of labor and progressive voices across the country who are supporting Tom and the strong, principled leadership we need in the Social Democratic Party. I'm also proud of the steelworkers who will be joining me in Edmonton later this week at the NDP convention to endorse Tom as the party's leader. We are also privileged to be hearing on Friday from Alberta's Social Democratic Premier, Rachel Notley. Not only is Rachel the leader of the Alberta New Democratic Government, she's also a woman of steel. Sisters and brothers, the lineup of special guests who will join us this week is a clear and emphatic confirmation of our union's success in building progressive alliances to fight for equality and social and economic justice. The theme of this year's conference, Equality and Pride, truly captures the essence of what we're all about as a union, as steelworkers, as labor and social justice activists. Equality lies at the heart of our union's work, in our workplaces, in our communities, and across the country. And we can all be proud as steelworkers that no one has fought as hard to oppose the agenda of corporation and right-wing governments that have created a crisis of growing inequality. There is more than ample objective research demonstrating how strong unions play a vital role in building a more equal society. Yet for decades now, we have seen a decline in economic and social equality and a shrinking middle class as more and more wealth and power have been concentrated among the top 1%. We can be proud that our union has been at the forefront of the fight against this growing inequality. If it wasn't for the fierce activism of the labor and progressive movements, inequality would surely even be worse. Steelworkers also know that our mission is not limited to reversing the economic inequality. Research shows that strong unions also play a vital role in promoting equality in the workplace, in closing the gender gap, pay gap, and providing justice and equality for marginalized and oppressed groups in our society. Steelworkers can be proud of our leadership in the fight for social equality, for gender equality, for LGBTQ equality, and for justice and equality for Aboriginal people. Sisters and brothers, steelworkers have always led the way in the struggle for progressive change because we've always been, and we always will be, a political union. We understand that to advance the interests of our members, we need to advance a political and social agenda that allows all Canadians to share in the benefits of our economy. Since our last policy conference, we've had political ups and downs. Back in April of 2013, when we last met, we thought we were about to throw out the right-wing BC Liberal government. We knew we were in the dying days of a Quebec Liberal government, and we tended to look at Alberta as a political backwater. Now, 3 years later, unfortunately, we see right-wing provincial governments in British Columbia, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, and the Manitoba NDP government is fighting for its life. And yet, in Alberta, we have the first ever social democratic government in the province's history. I'm sure we all look forward to Premier Notley giving us insights on how it's possible to forge a progressive social democratic NDP victory even in Alberta. Her principles and her views can help us each as we head back to our respective provinces and our political battles. Of course, the past year was dominated by the federal election, and even within that campaign, we saw astonishing ups and downs. The NDP came out of Alberta victory with tremendous support. Much of the first months of the campaign were dominated by Tom Mulcair's bold gamble to release an extremely progressive platform even before the writ was dropped. This progressive platform included a $15 minimum wage, anti-scab legislation, a universal $15 child care program, a national pharmacare program, a bold retirement security plan, and a significant corporate tax revenue stream. Support for the NDP took place within an overwhelming desire by leftists, progressives, and moderates alike to defeat the Neanderthal conservative government. The call to stop Harper was the defining message of the election from coast to coast to coast. The vast majority of the public were willing to cast their vote purely on that basis to remove Harper. Tom Mulcair and the NDP were acceptable to the electorate in that context as long as they were a likely vehicle to defeat Harper. And those hopes soared in August of last year, as when it looked like Canada was poised to elect our first ever social democratic federal government. But soon came the Liberals with their classic move of campaigning on the left only to turn around and governor on the right. At exactly this same time, Tom Mulcair was challenged with difficult issues around identity and public financing. It was a pivotal test of principles versus electoral advantage, the likes of which our politics are rarely ever seen. With the strategic advantage slipping to the Liberals, we saw an avalanche of votes that made a Liberal majority inevitable. And so, we are all relieved to be rid of Stephen Harper with a new federal government that is certainly good at speaking the language of equity. Mr. Trudeau speaks the language of equality, but this promise comes with the economic and class politics that challenge the pro-corporate, anti-worker status quo. And so, my friends, in the words of Tommy Douglas, I worry that we have yet again traded the black cats for the white cats. When it comes to fair trade and the TPP, the softwood lumber deal, a livable minimum wage, making corporations pay their fair share, addressing youth unemployment, temporary foreign workers, affordable child care, and job creation. We mice remain governed by the cats. These will be challenging times for progressives. The NDP must learn from the mistakes of the campaign and redefine its offer to progressive voters. But more importantly, we must learn how to rebuild support in a very different environment from the Conservative years. The task of Social Democrats is to highlight the underlying economic reality for working people and separate it from the high-minded symbolism of this new Liberal government. Beyond pointing out that the many promises the Liberal government will break, we need to get the public to focus on the real economic situation. We need to get the public to focus on the reality of the Liberals' refusal to challenge elite and corporate power. This is a difficult challenge. But for the sake of the country, I believe that Tom Mulcair is ready to take on and accomplish this task. I still believe in fundamental change, not simply glossing over working people's hardship with the label of liberal sunny ways. In addition to election campaigns, steelworkers are continuing to be involved in political action by advocating, lobbying at the federal, provincial, and municipal levels. I'm tremendously proud of our union's support for the campaign on behalf of missing and murdered Indigenous women. This is a crisis that goes to the heart of who we are as steelworkers. Our work has extended beyond the call for a much-needed inquiry. We understand it's essential to have a national plan on violence against women and girls. We understand that Indigenous communities must finally get the research, support, resources, and involvement that they deserve. Our political advocacy and lobbying is extensive, seeking effective progressive change throughout our society. As members of the Canadian Healthcare Coalition, steelworkers are lobbying federal and provincial governments to define and expand our public health care system. Steelworkers and SOAR activists are among the strongest advocates for enhancing the Canada and Quebec pension plans to ensure retirement security for all Canadians. Central to preserving our members' jobs, steelworkers work tirelessly with our allies to oppose unfair trade deals. These deals kill good jobs and give even more power to the corporate elite. Our union is also a key member of the Canadian Network for Corporate Accountability, which works to adopt laws and policies to hold Canadian corporations accountable when they exploit workers in other countries. Steelworkers are also continuing to fight for the repeal of Bill C-51, even as we see this government backtracking. Through all of our political activism, steelworkers enhance the strength of our members to demand justice, fairness, and greater equality. Political action is essential to defend our members' interests and to build a better future for all workers. We cannot build equality in Canada unless we have governments that are prepared to engage workers with unions. We must compel our governments to support progressive laws, policies that benefit women and men who built this country. Steelworkers know how the regressive policies of the successive Liberal and Conservative governments have decimated working families and communities across our country over the last 3 decades. In the last decade alone, we have lost over 400,000 manufacturing jobs in Canada. Families have been shattered and entire communities have been devastated by the disappearance of major employers. The disappearance of good middle-class jobs has led to a rapid growth of precarious part-time work. These jobs typically are non-union, low-wage positions that cannot support a family, This leads to a further hollowing out of the middle class and the growth of inequality. Today, we are facing another crisis in the Canadian steel industry. U.S. Steel Canada in Hamilton and Nanticoke and SR Steel in Algoma, Sault Ste. Marie are again under CCAA protection. Our major steel producers have resorted to layoffs in an attempt to stay afloat, affecting many of our members. As illegally subsidized foreign steel is dumped into our country, the crisis threatens thousands of jobs and pension and benefits of tens and thousands of retirees. Entire communities hang in the balance. Sisters and brothers, what kind of society do we live in when 20,000 U.S. Steel retirees can lose their health care with the stroke of a judge's pen? And yet, that's exactly what happened last fall in Hamilton. These retirees have earned these benefits after a lifetime of hard work in a dangerous industrial workplace. It is shameful to let these workers and these industries die, yet our government still refuses to take decisive action. Our government refuses to support an industry that injects $14 billion a year into our economy and that supports 120,000 direct and indirect jobs. Our government refuses to amend our bankruptcy laws to protect pensioners and workers from the corporate manipulation and greed in these restructurings. Brothers and sisters, no union has fought harder to protect middle-class jobs than the steelworkers. And no struggle over the last 3 years has been better amplified, this fight, than the 22-month strike at Crown Metal Packaging in Toronto. Crown's conduct typified everything that is wrong with our modern corporate economy. Crown is a vast multinational with 140 plants worldwide. The Toronto plant has provided decent middle-class wages to our members for decades, and in 2012, the plant was given an award for the most productive facility in North America. Yet despite the high productivity and profitability of the plant in 2013, Crown demanded massive concessions in wages, benefits, and pensions, forcing our members out on strike. The members at Local 9176 fought for nearly 2 years against a foreign multinational attempt to eliminate their union and their unionized jobs. They took their message to every corner of the globe. And ultimately, the strike was settled in July of 2015, with every striker being given the opportunity to return to work. Our members at Crown can hold their heads high for their struggle that they waged. But if we're going to protect the middle-class jobs in a global economy, the rules have to change, starting with the rules that govern free trade deals. We must continue to fight the liberals and conservative trade agenda that has devastated our economy. This agenda threatens even worse. Our new government seems willing to approve more bad trade deals like the TPP. The TPP will further erode workers' rights and our middle class. It'll subvert the power of our government to defend the interests of Canadian workers and communities. Steelworkers will continue to stand up for Canadian jobs, for the Canadian jobs in manufacturing. Last year, our union successfully argued a case at the Canadian International Trade Tribunal to stop the illegal dumping of subsidized foreign steel. But the truth is, our trade laws are too weak. We need real reform of these laws to protect Canadian jobs and to ensure that workers have a real voice in these trade cases. Our union continues to demand that our governments develop a real industrial strategy for our country. Canada must catch up to other nations by investing in research, development, and job training to build a 21st century manufacturing economy that creates value-added jobs for workers and their communities. It was shocking to learn last week a dramatic expansion of the temporary foreign worker program will again threaten Canadian jobs. Our union led the way in exposing shameful abuses of this program, from HD Mining in BC to the IT employees at RBC to exploited low-wage workers at Tim Hortons and McDonald's. We have been clear that this is not about pitting worker against worker. It's about providing decent wages, working conditions, and rights for all workers. If foreign workers are going to be brought to Canada, they should be given the rights and clear path to citizenship. Employers should not be allowed to exploit foreign workers as a means to suppress decent wages in our country. However, only days ago we learned through media reports that the Liberal government has actually decided to allow corporations to use even more temporary foreign workers than the Conservatives allowed. In fact, the Liberals will allow some industries to hire unlimited numbers of low-wage temporary foreign workers for up to 6 months every year. And this will be allowed even in communities with high levels of unemployment. This is an expansion of the former government's low-wage agenda for our economy. Our union has fought hard to end this abuse, and we will continue to do so. Brothers and sisters, steelworkers know that collective bargaining is the central vehicle by which unions tackle inequality. Tough economic times and right-wing attacks on workers' rights has presented enormous challenges to our members. However, I'm very proud of our union's collective bargaining achievements in virtually every sector of economy over the last 3 years. We have negotiated new contracts with global mining giants, including Valley and Sudbury and Thompson, Teck in BC, and Rio Tinto in Quebec and Labrador. In forestry, our locals have negotiated good agreements in the BC interior, on the BC coast, in Saskatchewan and Alberta. It is now a little over 10 years since the merger with the IWA, and it's a source of great pride to me that our Wood Council continues to flourish and negotiate industry-leading contracts for tens of thousands of our members. In the transportation sector, steelworkers have committed to negotiating leading collective agreements in the national agreements with CN Rail and CP Rail. I'm very proud of our strong membership in National Locals 1976 and 2004, both products of successful mergers with our union. Our members have also negotiated good contracts in very challenging sectors such as airport security. To help challenge this sector, we've organized a groundbreaking conference in 2014 to bringing together steelworkers and members of the International Association of Machinists who also work in airport security. This conference reflects our union's commitment to empower our members and to pressure the federal government to improve the working conditions. Our members in the post-secondary education sector also broke new ground in recent collective bargaining, developing new and innovative agreements with universities to ensure pension security. The ability to negotiate the best possible agreements, even during hard times, remains a hallmark of our union, and our members can be proud of the accomplishments over the last 3 years. Sisters and brothers, there is no stronger legacy built by the steelworkers over the years than our status as the health and safety union. For generations, our union's achievement in workplace health and safety have benefited all workers across the country. We celebrated this legacy in 2014 by marking the 40th anniversary of the 1974 Wildcat strike by miners in Elliott Lake, Ontario, which led to Canada's first modern workplace health and safety legislation. And we can all be proud that the steelworkers continue to build on our remarkable legacy. At our last policy conference, we passed a resolution to send a clear message that governments must enforce the Westray Act. Since our last conference, our national campaign to stop the killing and enforce the law has grown steadily and is having an impact across the country. The Stop the Killing campaign has been a remarkable success in lobbying municipalities, attorney generals, and political decision makers at all levels of government. And now, after more than a decade of Westray legislation, we are making headway enforcing the law when a worker is killed or injured at work. I want to take this opportunity to salute the hard work and leadership of Steve Hunt on this campaign. Thank you, Steve. Sisters and brothers, despite all the good work, it still is an unacceptable tragedy that we continue to see an average of 1,000 workers killed on the job each year. Sadly, over the last 3 years, the steelworkers family has been profoundly affected by workplace tragedies. As you will see on Thursday, we have lost too many members since we last met in 2013. I'm also proud that our union recognizes the mental health in a growing and significant workplace health and safety issue. Our National Health and Safety Environment Conference in 2014 in Toronto, steelworkers called on employers, unions, and governments to recognize mental health as a key workplace issue. I'm proud that our union is taking a leadership role on this important issue. And no equity issue is more important than those facing workers with disabilities. The unemployment rate of people with disabilities in Canada is over 5 times higher than those without disabilities. Disabled workers make less than a third of those without disabilities. Because of this, as you know, I joined the board and became a co-chair of the National Institute of Disability Management, an organization that was founded by an incredible man, Wolfgang Zimmermann. As some of you know, Wolfgang, he broke his back at work on his second day on the job. He didn't let this setback prevent him from going on to become a leader on behalf of workers with disabilities. Under Wolfgang's leadership, we have now established the Pacific Coast University in Port Alberni, focused on the improving knowledge and training and accident prevention and return to work. Thank you so much, Wolfgang, who's also here with us this week. Brothers and sisters, since our last policy conference, our union has even become more engaged on the most critical issue of our time, climate change. Steelworker activists attended last year's United Nations Climate Change Conference in Paris, adding our voices to the growing international demands of workers for a just transition to a sustainable economy. Steelworkers co-founded Blue Green Canada to advocate for the environment and for good jobs. We know we can do both by investing in renewable energy and creating good, advanced manufacturing jobs. We will continue to work through Blue-Green Alliance to ensure that the voices of workers is heard in the climate change debate and to push governments to create sustainable jobs for a brighter future. Sisters and brothers, one of the highlights of our policy conference was the passage of a resolution calling on our union to address issues faced by Aboriginal members and First Nations across Canada. We embraced this resolution and formed Steelworker Aboriginal Working Group. And in July in 2014 in Winnipeg, the working group held the first national consultation workshop for Aboriginal steelworkers. This meeting drew over 50 steelworkers of Aboriginal ancestry and our steelworker activists and directors all sharing their workplace experiences, their hope for the future. Many of these activists commented that this was one of the most remarkable experiences of their careers. This was a tangible sense of inspiration, shared pride, and optimism. Everyone pledged to move forward together to tackle the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I'm proud that we have made real progress in reaching out to our Aboriginal members and to our First Nation leaders and communities. And I'm looking forward to building on this collaboration and solidarity. At our National Women's Conference in 2015, over 300 women of steel tackled an ambitious agenda that called on all steelworkers to reinforce our commitment to gender equality. Our work in human rights over the last year has led to important discussions, developments, and commitments on the treatment of LGBTQ workers in Canada. Our union's commitment to the equality agenda is also reflected through our membership, education, training, and empowerment programs, which are the envy of the labor movement. In the last 3 years, we have provided education and training to almost 16,000 members across Canada. Sisters and brothers, we can also be proud of our union's unequaled record of global solidarity. Our Steelworkers Humanity Fund has marked its 30th anniversary last year, and it continues to help thousands of workers and communities around the world. Through our international alliances and our work with Industrial, we are making progress to help exploited workers in many countries. This includes a campaign to compel global clothing brands to adopt safety improvements for garment workers following the Rana Plaza collapse that killed over 1,100 workers in Bangladesh in 2013. As you will see in a report on Thursday afternoon, I had the opportunity to visit Rana Plaza on the one-year anniversary of this terrible disaster. Sisters and brothers, these workers, most of whom were young women, were earning pennies an hour in a building with falling walls, sewing the clothes that are sold every day at the Gap and Walmart, and here in Canada at Joe Fresh. I can think of no worse example of global capitalism and greed, and the death of those 1,100 workers stands as a glaring example of the failure of the global capitalist system. I say, how do corporate executives live with themselves, knowing this is how they earn a living? Sisters and brothers, this has to change. Over the last 3 years, we have continued to strengthen our alliances with Unite the Union and the UK through Workers Uniting, the Global Union. We have jointly created at the National Policy Conference in 2007. I'm also proud the steelworkers through Worker Uniting helped play a very key role in the historic liberation of the Cuban Five from the US prisons in 2014. Brothers and sisters, no global alliance is more important to me than our partnership with Mexico's Las Mineras Union and its leader, Napoleon Gomez. Napoleon has now been living in exile in Canada for close to 10 years, and he's been granted Canadian citizenship. Real progress has been made in Napoleon's case in Mexico. All the false charges against him have now been dismissed. Napoleon and his family are now free to travel anywhere except Mexico, where his safety still can't be assured. It's simply amazing how Napoleon has handled his situation, leading his union in exile for nearly a decade and repeatedly getting reelected by his members back home. I'm honored that Napoleon Gomez, one of my heroes, is here and will address our conference on Thursday. Sisters and brothers, as steelworkers, we can be immensely proud of our work over the last 3 years. As we chart our course for the next 3 years, we are guided by the knowledge that equality lies at the heart of everything we do as a union. In the name of equality and pride, we embrace the struggle against corporate greed, globalization, unfair trade deals, and the regressive policies of neoliberal governments. In the name of pride and equality, we will stand up for the interests of our members, for the interests of our pensioners, and for the interests of our communities. Equality and pride will remain as guiding principles as we look together to the future. Solidarity, brothers and sisters, and have a wonderful conference.